Well, hello and welcome to John. It's great to be here with you, and it's great to be
hmm
here with our third wheel here. No, not a third wheel. You're our third part of the Trinity here. Well, but no, we're not getting too holy. Anyways, it's the three of us. We're,
Yeah.
we're doing this thing here,
Me, you, and you.
and it's always good to do this in the month of January because it means you've done something really, really, really well. But let's set the stage. Let's set the stage. This weekend, you can go and the Texans can do something they've never done in their franchise history. Get a win in the divisional round of the playoffs and play in an AFC title game the week after. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. It's going to be an opponent that is gunning for a three-peat. Everyone and everything is stacked against you, presumably so.
Yeah.
You're playing the best quarterback in the world, a future Hall of Famer. You've got the best tight end in the land and over the last few years in Travis Kelce. His girlfriend, Taylor Swift, is going to be in the building. This is a monster opportunity. And I think the Texans are ready for it, John. I'm saying they're ready for it. I'm not guaranteeing any wins, but they are ready for it, and they're playing their best football right now.
I think there are a number of things. First of all, as you're watching me, you can kind of see that, side of my mouth isn't opening up. I'm working past it, getting ready for Saturday.
Pull back the curtain.
Pull back the curtain a little bit. So if I look a little weird, it's going away. We got some medicine, and hopefully it'll be.
You're all right. You're nothing major.
Yeah. It's just people are watching, going, "Ew, they look weird." Yeah, okay, well that's why. So anyhow, I agree with you, and I think there are a couple of things. First of all, health. I remember last year going to Baltimore, and I just remember, gosh, I hope that our defensive line can hold up. They're so banged up. And that was a massive thing. And then we held in there for half. And then just eventually Lamar and the rest of the run game just kind of, wore down our defensive line. First of all, I think our defensive line is healthier and as healthy as it's been in a long time.
And just like Two Live Crew, as nasty as they want to be.
That's right. And they were incredible against the Chargers. Now, you also got the Chargers to a point where they had to abandon whatever run game they had, which wasn't much on Saturday, and become solely we're throwing it. And if you get in that mode against this defense, it's going to be tough. I don't care who's back there. I know that gets tougher against Mahomes than anybody else because of how he creates. But if you can get them one-dimensional, you've got a much better opportunity to win a game than not. But as far as being ready, and you're going to feel ready. And that's the biggest thing. You're going to feel ready. Mentally, I think they're going to be there. Now, when you walk back in that stadium on Saturday and you remember back to December, that game was mentally and physically grueling, probably more mental than it was physical. Losing Tank in that game, all the injuries you had. Jimmy Ward got hurt. Shaq Mason got hurt. And, of course, the one that probably left the biggest impression was Tank got hurt.
Yeah.
So you have to mentally overcome that early in the game. Make something good happen early. Withstand some of the blows. And I know a lot of people that are Texans fans, 24-0, they remember all that. You know who was on the team at that point? You know who played in that game at that point?
Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, John Weeks, Kyrie Fairburn.
Nope.
Those are the
Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard didn't play.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Titus
he was hurt.
Yeah.
And your two specialists. And so it was one player.
Changed. A lot
It was
changed.
one player. So these guys don't have that history, and I think that's good. They don't have that history. So you just go play. You play your game. You play it the way you've played it this year with hopefully some more confidence that you earned and gained in that win over the Chargers. So as far as being ready, yeah, I think they're much more physically and mentally ready to tackle this challenge. I think there's so many different nuggets about going to the divisional playoff round, Drew. Do you realize we have never led in the second half of a divisional playoff game? We've never led. 5 of them.
It's amazing.
Here's the other one.
You've only led, in 12 when Danielle Manning returned the kickoff and got tripped by the kicker, but that didn't get called.
Right.
Got tripped shy of the goal line. And then you had to kick a field goal because you throw a touchdown in the end zone and it gets dropped, but you kick a field goal. That's like the only time you've led, right? In 12? Did the Texans?
Well, we led in Kansas City.
Oh, well, you led in 11 because you kicked the field goal early too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you led in Kansas City 24-0 famously.
I blanked that out. That's
but in the second half,
dramatic,
you have not. I mean, the first 4 games you played, it was 17-13 at half. The 5th game you played, oh no, I'm sorry. It was 17-13, 17-13, like the first 3, and then it was 28-24. You trailed by 4 at every halftime, just 4 at every halftime. But then the second half turned into what it turned into. Yeah. But you've never led in the second half. Last year, you're tied. You get the Steven Sims return.
Yeah.
You tie it at 10. You missed a field goal, but you still feel pretty good. Like, okay, we're tied at 10. We're good. And then you have a couple opportunities on that ensuing drive, the first drive of the third quarter, to make a defensive play. You don't make it. Lamar has the quarterback draw, and away you go. Now, all of a sudden, it's just downhill. I got a feeling that you'll have a lead in the second half in this game. I hope you do. And then it's going to be guts and grit to get to the end. But you can't think about it that way. It's got to be just, let's win this play, go on and win the next play. And that's it. And I think about the grand aspect of doing something you've never done before. But I remember making a list, Drew, at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, we had never beaten Minnesota. And then we got to wait a few years for that.
Yep.
We had never won in Dallas.
Did that.
We did that.
Mm-hmm.
We had never won in New England. We did that.
Yep.
We had never beaten Lamar Jackson. And,
still gotta go there.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet. But we could have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
The one that I never threw in there because I didn't want to, we've never been to an AFC championship game, i.e., we've never won in the divisional playoff round. So here's another never, going back to the scene of one of the most, I don't even know what you would call it.
Cataclysmic. It's cataclysmic. There's no other word. Yeah, it's cataclysmic.
I was asked I want your thoughts on this. I was asked on Wednesday morning, I did my Texags interview, which I do weekly, and they asked me about that game. And I remember my friend David Nuno, the host, said,
sure.
It's been, a short time. I'm like, yeah, 5 years doesn't feel like a whole lot.
Well, it's because of what we all went through working.
Exactly. Here. And I think that's the point.
Yeah.
And so they didn't really ask me this, but I kind of asked myself this. So I'll ask you, if you knew leaving Arrowhead Stadium January 2020, that we could go back to Arrowhead 2025, not really knowing kind of anything that happens, or maybe knowing everything that happens. Then they tell you this is what's going to happen over these 3 years. It's going to be miserable, but then you get to this place on the other side. There's a big part of me that says, okay, I'll take the pain. I could get through the pain if we can get to the other side because I know where that's going to eventually go. What do you think? Would you have taken that?
No, I would have rather not. Now, I would have rather gone back the very next year and beaten them and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know.
There's that. Yeah.
A different cast of characters. We're more calloused now in a good sort of way because we saw some things and went through some things, and it was miserable around here for three seasons. Yeah. If you go right back the next year, you don't have DeMeco Ryans, you don't have CJ Stroud, maybe all that stuff, but
you change the time continuum.
Yeah.
As Marty would say.
No,
Doc.
It takes me still, bringing this up still takes me back to that day in late January, early February of 2023, when I hear a roar. I'm sitting at my desk and I hear a roar on the other side of the business ops side. And I see the tweet saying that DeMeco Ryans is going to be the new head coach of the Texans. It wasn't from the inside the building. It was somebody reporting.
National reporter, yeah.
And I'd seen the lead up to it. I knew he interviewed and so on and so forth, but I was like, nah, it makes too much sense. And the way things have gone down around here the last 3 years, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Makes too much sense.
That's too much a fairy tale.
He's too perfect a candidate. Yep. And by golly, he comes around the pillar near my desk, and I hop up, I see him. He's like, ooh. So, I'm glad he's here, and I'm pumped about this weekend. But yeah, I wouldn't want to go through that again. That sucked.
I remember that day I was at the Senior Bowl, and I've been to Senior Bowl for 2 years prior to, and I think I've told the story. I was checking in the year before. And I got my credential, and of course I'd say I was with the Houston Texans and all that kind of stuff. And I'm walking in,
got giggles and
I heard some jackasses over there giggling about like the Texans, and I wanted to say something because I'm that guy. I typically will say something. I was like, I'll just leave it. The next year, I'm down on the field, and I've got guys coming up to me going, "Hey, is it true? Is it true?" And I'm like, I mean, I've heard same stuff you guys have. I'm not putting my eggs in that basket yet, but man, I hope it happens. I hope it happens. And literally 30 minutes later, I look down and I get the text, and it's like it happened. And I just remember what they were saying. They're like, "Man, you guys need that to happen. You need that to happen." I'm like, yeah, I'd love for that to happen. And then it did. I was like, I remember standing there at the Senior Bowl going, did this thing just change overnight? Did this thing just change? They're like, oh, okay, we'll see how it goes. It did. It changed right then and there.
And then they tripled down with the moves on draft night.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
thank
God you moved back up to get Will Anderson.
And I hear all this, Drew, as we're kind of going off on a tangent, but still,
yeah,
I think it's important to realize, because you hear all this right now. It's a time of year where you've got places like the Raiders. They've got a GM and head coach opening, and I saw some source say, well, the Raiders wanted to have continuity or whatever, so they fired their GM. And I remember thinking, well, Nick and DeMeco didn't know each other.
Yeah,
they didn't know each other at all. And then now look at them, and it's a great partnership, and they work together. And I'm like, it can happen if you have the right people. It can happen. And
yeah, because there was an idea out there that anyone New England associated, which Nick Caserio, his background was with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, not going to work with anybody outside of that,
exactly.
that tree.
Exactly.
So much for all that.
Yeah, so much for all that. And now here we are.
And thank goodness. Thank goodness. One more thing before we get into raising the glass and before we get into cream of the crop. I love this defensive line. You've never really gone this deep into the playoffs with this high a quality of defensive line.
Right.
You've had better players, having better seasons than J.J. Watt. Okay.
Yep.
But you've never had across the board this effective, this nasty, a spear.
Yep.
Like they're the tip of the spear. So the defensive line. And then in tandem with that, you've never had an all-pro corner like Stingley and I think playing at a Pro Bowl level, Kamari Lassiter.
Yeah.
And then the linebackers, what they're doing, Azeez Al-Shire. And Azeez was not there against the Chiefs. He was serving the suspension. Right. He was in the middle of that suspension.
Neither was Foley Fatukasi.
Neither was Foley.
Neither one.
Yeah. So, and you sprinkle in Christian Harris, see how much he plays. But Henry To'oTo'o, who you've made the point, I mean, he's been one of your top 3 or 4 defensive players all season long. He's playing at a super, super high level, only in year 2.
Yep.
That's a delicious thing. You've never gone armed with a defense like this into a title game. Closest I think you'd say is that 11 bunch, the Ravens. They were really good.
Yeah.
That Texans defense that year. But I don't know that you can say the defensive line all the way across was good.
But they were healthy and they were playing well together, that 2011 bunch. And that's why they held the Ravens to 20 points. The 2016 group was playing without Watt.
Right.
But Clowney and Merciless were playing at an incredible level.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, they made Brady's life miserable. They were dominant that night. They just didn't have the offensive firepower to kind of match just what the Patriots were bringing.
But having the tandem of Will and Hunter, and then throwing in DeMeco Autry.
That's right.
And on top of that, Fatukasi, like you're saying, Mario Edwards.
He's been phenomenal.
Tim Settle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot to. I didn't even say Derek Barnett, dude. He scored 2 touchdowns this year. I mean, that's
and don't forget Tommy Togiai.
Outstanding pickup, man. This guy.
He was $20 you found in your pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable to think about what that guy is.
Kurt Hinish is ready to rock too. He's been a numbers casualty.
Yeah, exactly.
He can give you good snaps.
Yep.
I mean, you've never gone in. You had great players and you've had great lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good this one is what I'm saying.
Yep. Now, to beat these guys, and we'll get to this on our cream of the crop players, but you have to be that and then some, because they got championship pedigree. So you got to beat them and the pedigree, knowing, hey, they know even if we get up big on them, like, hey, they're up 14-0. So what? We beat them 5 years ago. We got a lot of same guys. We'll come right back on them, And so the mental and physical wherewithal you've got to have to beat them in their building in the playoffs. It's been done twice. Patriots, Burrow and the Bengals.
Yep.
That's it. 18-21. That's it. Other than that, it's been a Chiefs run through the AFC. So you're fighting all that. And they've never, since Patrick Mahomes took over as starter, they've never lost a divisional playoff round.
Yeah.
So I'm all for firsts.
Let's go make some NFL history, and let's raise a Modelo. Let's raise a glass to playing this deep into the postseason. It's a beautiful thing. Texans and the Chiefs in the divisional round, round 2. And yeah, you're decidedly the underdogs.
Yep.
But you're some underdogs with some fangs, man.
That's right.
You can do some fun things. Okay. Time to bring in the third member, or excuse me, I guess it would be the fourth member of this podcast, Randy Macho Man Savage.
The cream of the crop.
Yes, with the cream of the crop, which means if you're new to the podcast, every time we do In the Lab, we when we're in season, we pinpoint a guy. If the Texans are to win this weekend, it will be because this player, I choose one, and your player, you choose one. We're the cream of the crop. So I'm going to choose this guy.
You go first.
He could have won cream of the crop last weekend. DeMeco Ryans.
Ooh.
Gets a paw up.
I like it.
It's that extra point block, which snuffed out any momentum, I think, from that Lab McConkey touchdown. Because they could have messed with you late. You know, could have gotten something going, some mojo working, and he blocked that and got returned for the score. And he also had a sack. I'm going to go with DeMeco Ryans. He's nasty. What did we hear from Nick Caserio before the season started, right after you sign him? He's a real pain in the ass, were Nick's words. He's mean. He's tough. He's a guy that you do not want to have to face. And you've got the easy choices in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. They can be your cream of the crop award winners every single time, basically.
That's right.
I mean, easy to go with them. But now you're mixing in him with Barnett. Like we just went over this. I'm going with DeMeco Ryans. He's heating up as the games continue to get more and more important. I like what you got with him. And he was integrated with Hunter and Anderson on plenty of sets last week and kind of playing inside a little bit, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's where his first rush on Jamari Sawyer. So there's a technique called long arm, and it's pretty simple. It basically is when you rush, you extend your inside arm with as much power as you possibly can. You kind of aim at the V of the neck. That's kind of the aiming point. And the point is you want to kind of lift the guy up. And he not only lifted him up, he put Jamari Sawyer on his wallet. That set up his sack later. So I didn't see that rush. But when I went back and I watched the game and I saw that, I was like, oh, he was setting it up. So he set him up with the long arm, put him on his wallet, didn't get a sack. But later, he gets the sack. By now, it's faking the long arm and then going over with a swim move. And what does Sawyer do? He's bracing, so he kind of lunges out, makes the swim move that much easier, goes and gets a sack on Herbert. The sack, the pass rush order in some sense, setting guys up with a veteran like DeMeco Ryans is huge, huge. And I love that part.
Think about all the stuff these guys, the offensive linemen, have to think about, ponder, and anticipate. And it's one thing to do it against a really good guy. That's hard enough. But now you're integrating so many stars defensively on that front line that you have so much you have to worry about. So, and I wonder how much you've held back. Like you showed them stuff right before Christmas.
Yeah.
What did the Texans not show them?
Good point. Now there are things you probably couldn't even show.
Right.
Because you didn't have
Foley,
everybody.
no Aziz. Yeah.
My cream of the crop is actually going to be kind of a crop. It is every pass catcher not named Nico Collins.
Okay.
Because obviously Deontay Johnson no longer here, and X makes that big catch. But Kate Stover had 4 catches for 28 yards the other day, and he just went on IR.
Yeah.
Dalton had a couple of catches. That's got to go up.
Yep.
Mechie had a couple of really tough moments in that game. he's got to play with a higher sense of urgency, catching everything, yards after the catch. Robert Woods, I thought, played pretty well, had 2 catches for 22 yards, but then he didn't practice on Tuesday, so hopefully that gets better throughout the week. Jared Wayne is now up to the 53-man roster. He's got to do something. And I know that's going to be a tough one for him because he's going back to where, he was involved, unfortunately, with that Tank Dell injury. You've got to have a pass catcher or pass catchers step up beyond Nico Collins. Look, it's great if Nico catches 7 for 150 or 10 for 130 or whatever. He's the stud everybody thinks he is.
How about 12 for 250?
Yeah. I don't care what he does. But the other guys, everybody else not named Nico, have got to step up. We've lost Tank. We've lost Steph. No longer here. Lost Deontay Johnson now. You've lost Kate Stover. There are a lot of weapons that are now gone. In fact, look at it this way. Derek Stingley had 2 interceptions for 70 yards. Eric Murray had 1 interception for 38 yards. If you put them in the receiving category, they would have been receivers 2 and 3 in the yardage order.
Yeah.
So you got to get your wide receivers to step up and make some plays because the Chiefs are going to challenge Nico and CJ by taking away Nico. Like, look, we're not letting Nico beat us. Mm-hmm. You other guys are going to have to beat us. And those guys are going to have to step up and beat them. And if they do, got a good chance. If they're the cream of the crop that we want them to be, then we'll be fine. We'll be fine. It might mean more to Joe Mixon. I don't care. It might be more to Dameon Pierce. I don't care what the pass catcher is or who it is, but somebody else has got to step up and make plays in the passing game that's not named Nico Collins.
If it's more to Mixon and Pierce by default, you're chewing clock up if that's the
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a good thing. I mean,
different way to run the ball. Yeah, absolutely. That's what Cade's catches were. Cade Stover's catches were just an extension of the run game. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that.
Those worked, yeah.
But who's that guy going to be, or who those guys going to be that can do that for you on Saturday?
Schultz looked solid against the Chiefs last time around. Going to need him.
Need him a lot.
Yeah.
Got to catch everything. Has to catch everything thrown his way.
Can't wait. All right. Hey, let's do this again next week, because if we do, we're doing it in uncharted territory, John.
Yeah.
Always a fun one. Glad I'm with you. Glad I'm with you, gentle viewer, gentle listener. This has been In the Lab, presented by Xfinity.